going on, everybody? It's me again, Golden Blue Dude. And hey, if you're a college football or a college basketball fan, you might as well go ahead, hit the like and subscribe button, and please share this video. That is the best way to grow this channel. I guarantee you, if you love this content, somebody else will love it as well. And also, we've created a group on ESPN for the Bracket Challenge. All you have to do is go to ESPN, then go to the Bracket Challenge, type Golden Blue Dude in the group section, and boom, there you go. And the winner will receive a prize from our store. On to the brackets themselves. I've already done the West region. I'm running out of time, so I'm going to go ahead and do the rest of the regions. First, we'll start off with the East region. The 1-16 matchup. The 1 seed Baylor, 26-6. The 16 seed Norfolk State, 24-6. Norfolk State, one of the stronger 16 seeds, but I don't think they're going to pull a UMBC. So I have Baylor moving on to the round of 32. The 8-9 matchup. The 8 seed North Carolina against the 9 seed Marquette. North Carolina's 24-9. Marquette 19-12. Don't let that record fool you. They have some great wins, and I think they have enough to pull off maybe a mild upset over North Carolina. I have them moving on to the round of 32 as well. Now time for the 5-12 matchup. We have the 5 seed St. Mary's 25-7, and Indiana won the play-in game against Wyoming. They're 20-13. Indiana is on a roll, but I think St. Mary's is just a little too much. So I had the 5 seed St. Mary's moving on to the round of 32. Next we have the 4-13 matchup. This could be an intriguing matchup. The 4 seed UCLA 25-7. The 13 seed Akron 24-9. I do think Akron can scare UCLA, and I do have UCLA on upset alert, but I have UCLA moving on to the round of 32. I just think their bench is way too deep for Akron. But don't be surprised if Akron does pull the upset here. Next up, the 6 seed Texas against the 11 seed Virginia Tech. Texas is 21-11. Virginia Tech's 23-12. This could be one of the best games of the first round. I do have Virginia Tech barely beating Texas. They got on a roll, won the ACC tournament. I think that roll continues, and I have the Hokies moving on to the round of 32. I know, a West Virginia fan picking Virginia Tech. I never thought I'd do it either. Next up, the 3-14 matchup. The 3 seed Purdue 27-7 against the 14 seed Yale 19-11. I think this is a big time mismatch. I think Purdue will beat Yale by like 15-20 points. I have Purdue moving on to the round of 32. Next up, the 7-10 matchup. This is going to be a very good matchup. 7 seed Murray State 30-2. Just 2 losses against the 10 seed San Francisco 24-9. I do think San Francisco is underseeded. This team beat Gonzaga in the regular season. So even though I like Murray State a lot, I think they were dealt a crummy matchup. I have the 10 seed San Francisco moving on to the round of 32. And finally, the 2-15 matchup, Kentucky against St. Peter's. Kentucky is 26-7. St. Peter's 19-11. This kind of reminds me of the Purdue-Yale matchup. I think this is a mismatch. I have Kentucky rolling to the round of 32. Now for the round of 32 matchups. The 1 seed Baylor against the 9 seed Marquette. Get ready, guys. Here comes a big upset. I predicted Oklahoma to upset Baylor in the Big 12 championship. I'm doing it again. I'm picking the 9 seed Marquette to upset the number 1 seed Baylor. I don't think Baylor gets any further than the round of 32. They're a little banged up, and Marquette has proven that they can beat some pretty good teams. So I have Marquette in the Sweet 16. Next up, the 5-4 matchup. St. Mary's against UCLA. I like the shooters of UCLA. St. Mary's is a good team, don't get me wrong, but I think UCLA will be able to outshoot St. Mary's. So I have the Bruins moving on to the Sweet 16. Next up, the 11 seed Virginia Tech against 3 seed Purdue. I think this is where Virginia Tech's run ends. I think Purdue is better than people realize. Yes, they've had some wonky losses, but for the most part, Purdue has looked pretty good in the regular season. So I do have Purdue moving on to the Sweet 16. Then the 10-2 matchup, San Francisco against Kentucky. I was tempted to pick San Francisco, but I think Kentucky's just a little bit better. But it wouldn't surprise me if San Francisco were able to move on to the Sweet 16. Now for the Sweet 16 matchups in the East region. The 9 seed Marquette against the 4 seed UCLA. Yep, another upset. Marquette does it again. They get hot, and I have Marquette moving on to the Elite 8. Now for the 3-2 matchup. I think Purdue has a little bit of a better defense, but I think Kentucky has a better offense, especially with that inside presence from former West Virginia player Oscar Tshiebwe. So I have Kentucky moving on to the Elite 8. Finally, the Elite 8 matchup in the East region, the 9 seed Marquette against the 2 seed Kentucky. Look, I think Kentucky has championship material this year. I do. I think they have a great inside presence. They can shoot the ball from the outside, and they have great defense. So I have Kentucky moving on to the Final Four out of the East region. Next up, the South region. First up, up the 116 matchup. The 1 seed Arizona taking on whoever wins between Wright State and Bryant. Doesn't matter. Arizona's going to blow out whoever wins that. I have the 31-3 Arizona Wildcats moving on to the round of 32. Next up, the 8-9 matchup. The 8 seed Seton Hall 21-10 against the 9 seed TCU 20-12. TCU has gotten just a little bit hot recently. Now, they were bounced in the Big 12 tournament, but not before they beat Texas, so they got another pretty good win before they got to the big dance. I'm giving TCU the slight edge here. I think they're just a smidge better. I think they've been tested a little bit more, and I think they have better wins. I have TCU moving on to the round of 32. Next up, the dreaded 5-12 matchup. The 5 seed Houston against the 12 seed UAB. Houston is 29-5, UAB 27-7. Would not surprise me if UAB pulled off the mild upset here, but I think Houston is just too much. The AAC champs move on to the round of 32. Next up, this is the matchup to keep your eyes on in the South region. The 4 seed Illinois 22-9. The 13 seed Chattanooga 27-7. First of all, I think Illinois is overseeded. Second of all, I think this is a crummy matchup for Illinois. Yes, I am picking Chattanooga to move on to the round of 32 to play Houston. Now time for the 6-11 matchup. 6 seed Colorado State 25-5 against the 11 seed Michigan 17-14. Michigan should not be in the big dance. Having said that, I do have the Wolverines moving on to the round of 32. Oh, Golden Blue Dude, that means they do belong. No, it doesn't. Even bad teams can pull off upsets. Nevertheless, I do have Michigan going on to the round of 32. Now time for the 3-14 matchup. The 3 seed Tennessee 26-7 taking on the 14 seed Longwood 26-6. Could be interesting, but I still think the SEC champs Tennessee moves on to the round of 32 to play Michigan. Now it's time for the 7-10 matchup. This one is baffling, to be honest with you. The 7 seed Ohio State 19-11 against the 10 seed Loyola Chicago 25-7. Those seedings should be flipped. And I'm taking Loyola Chicago to bounce Ohio State out of the first round. And I have Loyola Chicago moving on to the round of 32. 2-15 matchup. The 2 seed Villanova 26-7 taking on the 15 seed Delaware 22-12. I don't think this is going to be a very competitive matchup. I have the 2 seed Villanova moving on to the round of 32. Now time for the round of 32 matchups. The 1 seed Arizona against the 9 seed TCU. I think Arizona just stays hot. They won the Pac-12 tournament. I think they move on to the Sweet 16 past TCU. Now the 5-13 matchup. The 5 seed Houston taking on the 13 Chattanooga. Chattanooga will be a challenge for Houston, but I do think Houston overcomes that challenge and they move on to the Sweet 16. Now for the 10-3 matchup. The 10 seed Michigan against the 3 seed Tennessee. This is where I think Michigan gets exposed big time. I have Tennessee big over Michigan and on to the Sweet 16. Now the 10-2 matchup. The 10 seed Loyola Chicago against the 2 seed Villanova. I'm telling you, Loyola Chicago underseeded, and I think they do it again, prove people wrong, and move on to the Sweet 16. Now for the Sweet 16 matchup in the South region. The 1 seed Arizona against the 5 seed Houston. I really want this matchup to happen. I think this is a great matchup. I think it will be a great basketball game, and I think Arizona stays hot and moves on to the Elite 8. And now the other Elite 8 matchup, the 3 seed Tennessee against the 10 seed Loyola Chicago. Sorry, Loyola Chicago. I think this is where you run ins. Tennessee is just too good. I'm telling you, they are on a roll. So I have Tennessee moving on to the Elite 8. So we have the 1 seed Arizona, Pac-12 tournament champs against the 3 seed Tennessee, SEC tournament champs, both on a roll. Who keeps it going? I like Arizona. I think Arizona has the shooters, the defense, the entire package, and I like their deep bench. Give me the 1 seed Arizona coming out of the South region onto the Final Four. Finally, the Midwest region. Here we go. The 1 seed Kansas slayed their way to a 1 seed by winning the Big 12 tournament. They are 28-6. And they're going to be taking on Texas Southern, the 16th seed, 18-12. No contest here. Texas Southern going to be tapping out here. I have the 1 seed Kansas moving on to the round of 32. Next up, the 8-9 matchup should be a good one. The 8 seed San Diego State, 23-8 against the 9 seed Creighton out of the Big East, 22-12. I do have Creighton with the slight edge here, but honestly, this is a coin flip here. I'm going to say the 9 seed Creighton tentatively. We'll see what happens. Now our favorite matchup, that dreaded 5-12 matchup. The 5 seed Iowa, 26-9 against the 12 seed Richmond, 23-12. I'm still a little iffy on Richmond as far as did they do enough to get into the big dance. Obviously, in the selection committee's eyes, they did. But I do think the Spiders get bounced in round 1. I had the 5 seed Iowa on to the round of 32. The 4-13 matchup, the 4 seed Providence, 25-5. The 13 seed South Dakota State, 30-4. This is going to be a good game. Do not be surprised if Providence does get upset. However, I've been talking about Providence for a long time. Final Four sleeper. I have them moving on to the round of 32. Here's the 6-11 matchup. The 6 seed LSU 22-11 against the 11 seed 20-12 Iowa State. This could be a coin flip as well, but I think LSU has enough to move on, and I do have them moving on to the round of 32. Here's the 3-14 matchup. The 3 seed Wisconsin against the 14 seed Colgate. Wisconsin's 24-7, Colgate's 23-11. Colgate could make this competitive and make Wisconsin sweat, but I don't trust the upset here. So I'm going to have the 3 seed Wisconsin moving on to the round of 32. Here's the 7-10 matchup. The 7 seed USC 26-7. The 10 seed Miami, the Hurricanes 23-10. I think Miami underseeded, and I think they shock USC, pull them out upset, and they're on to the round of 32. Finally, the 2-15 matchup, the 2 seed Auburn against the 15 seed Jacksonville State. Auburn is 27-5. Jacksonville State shouldn't even be in the big dance. They're 21-10. Bellarmine actually won that tournament, but they're not eligible for the big dance. That's how Jacksonville State got in, and I think they get bounced immediately. The 2 seed Auburn on to the round of 32. Here is your round of 32 matchups for the Midwest region. The 1 seed Kansas against the 9 seed Creighton. Creighton might be able to put up a fight for a while, but the shooting of Kansas will eventually overwhelm them. I have the 1 seed Kansas moving on to the Sweet 16. Now here's the 5 seed Iowa against the 4 seed Providence. I have a lot of confidence in Providence, so I gotta pick them, and that's exactly what I'm doing. The 4 seed Providence on to the Sweet 16 to play the 1 seed Kansas. The 6-3 matchup, the 6 seed LSU against the 3 seed Wisconsin. You know, I went back and forth a lot on this. At first I picked LSU, but you know what? I'm going to flip over to Wisconsin. I just trust them a little bit more. So I have the 3 seed Wisconsin moving on to the Sweet 16. The 10 seed Miami, the Hurricanes against the 2 seed Auburn. Look, Miami is underseeded, and I do have them upsetting USC, but I think this is where the road stops. I think this is a bad matchup for Miami, and I think the 2 seed Auburn keeps rolling on to the Sweet 16. Here's the Sweet 16 matchups for the Midwest region. This might make you raise your eyebrows as well. The 1 seed Kansas against the 4 seed Providence. I think this is where Kansas trips up again in the big dance like they always do, and the 4 seed Providence is the beneficiary. That's right, I have Providence over Kansas into the Elite 8. And finally, the 3-2 matchup, the 3 seed Wisconsin against the 2 seed Auburn. Auburn can be a scary good team. They have had their bad games, but I think they will be on their toes. I think they will bring their A game, and I have Auburn on to the Elite 8. So here's your Elite 8 matchup. The 4 seed Providence against the 2 seed Auburn. This could be a great back and forth, but you know what? I have to stick to my guns. I'm going to stick with the 4 seed Providence with a magical run. I've been keeping my eyes on them this entire season, so I'm sticking with it. A top 4 seed, I'm confident, so I have Providence on to the Final Four. So now it's time for the Final Four prediction. Of course, if you watched yesterday's video, you knew that I have Texas Tech coming out of the West, so it's going to be the 3 seed Texas Tech against the 2 seed Kentucky out of the East. And out of this matchup, I like Kentucky. I think Kentucky is the entire package, and I think they have enough to get past Texas Tech on to the national championship. So here's my other matchup in the Final Four. The 1 seed Arizona out of the South against the 4 seed Providence out of the Midwest. I'm confident enough to pick Providence to go to the Final Four. Not confident enough to have them moving on to the national championship. So that's right. The 1 seed Arizona moving on to the national championship to take on the 2 seed Kentucky. And this is going to be a great national championship if it comes to fruition. I like both of these teams. I think Arizona's just a little bit hungrier. I think they're ready to cap off one of their most amazing seasons that they've had in a very long time with a national championship. And I think that's exactly what happens. I have the Arizona Wildcats beating the Kentucky Wildcats for the national championship, 73-68. Arizona, your 2022 national champions of college basketball. Hey, y'all let me know in the comments section where you agree with me, where you disagree with me. I'll respect your opinion, but I'll give you my opinion on your opinion. That's all I got for you for this show. Like and subscribe if you haven't already. I'll see you on my next show.